Dale Evans lived a life that appeared radiant with faith, music, and romance. To the public, she stood proudly beside Roy Rogers, the beloved cowboy hero admired by millions. Yet beneath the glow of Western stardom lay a far more complicated reality, marked by hidden pain, guarded secrets, and emotional burdens she carried for decades. In her later years, when silence became impossible to maintain, Dale finally spoke openly about her marriage and the regrets that lingered long after the applause faded. Her story did not begin in glamour, but in struggle and early heartbreak. Before becoming the Queen of the West, she was Frances Octavia Smith, born on October 31, 1912, in Uvalde, Texas. Her childhood was unstable and far removed from the polished Hollywood image later crafted around her. Raised in part by her uncle, Dr. L.D. Massey, in Arkansas, she was forced to grow up quickly. At just 14, she ran away to marry Thomas F. Fox, and by 15, she was a mother to a son, Thomas Jr., known as Tommy. The marriage collapsed within a year, leaving her divorced, abandoned in Memphis, and struggling to survive as a teenage single mother. Determined to provide for her child, she turned to music. In the late 1920s, she found work singing and playing piano at local radio stations WMC and WREC. Although gifted, she endured constant rejection, financial instability, and the social stigma attached to single motherhood during an era obsessed with image and morality. Her first divorce was finalized in 1929. Hoping for stability, she remarried that same year to August Wayne Johns, but that marriage ended in 1935. A turning point arrived in the 1930s when a radio station manager in Louisville encouraged her to adopt a new name. Frances Octavia Smith became Dale Evans, a name that sounded confident, modern, and memorable. The change brought momentum to her career, and her smooth, expressive voice soon earned her a contract with 20th Century Fox. However, success came at a price. Studio executives demanded she erase her past, forcing her to claim that her son was actually her younger brother. For years, she lived with that lie, projecting an image of wholesome perfection while privately carrying deep shame and sorrow. It was a secret that haunted her for the rest of her life. By the mid-1930s, Dale had begun establishing herself in the entertainment industry. After divorcing August Wayne Johns, she married pianist and arranger Robert Dale Butts in 1937. Like her previous marriages, this union was strained and emotionally distant. Though they worked together professionally, true intimacy was missing. By 1946, the marriage ended in divorce, marking yet another painful chapter in her search for stability. Despite personal setbacks, her career continued to rise. At 20th Century Fox, she became a featured singer and appeared regularly in films. Her voice made her a natural performer in jazz, swing, and big band music, and she gained national recognition through frequent appearances on the Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy radio show. Hollywood reshaped her image, dressing her in ornate cowgirl costumes adorned with rhinestones, fringe, and embroidered details, transforming her into a glamorous Western star. In 1944, her life changed again when she was cast opposite Roy Rogers in The Cowboy and the Senorita. Their chemistry was undeniable, both on screen and off. At the time, both were married, Roy to his wife Arlene, and Dale to Robert Butts. Tragedy soon intervened. In 1946, Roy lost Arlene shortly after the birth of their son, Roy Jr., known as Dusty. Suddenly widowed, Roy was left to raise 3 children alone. Dale, familiar with heartbreak, became a source of comfort during his grief. Their friendship deepened into love, and by the end of 1947, Roy proposed in his own unforgettable way, while seated on his horse, Trigger, just moments before riding into a rodeo arena in Chicago. On December 31, 1947, they were married at the Flying L Ranch in Oklahoma during the filming of Home in Oklahoma. It was Dale's 4th marriage and Roy's 3rd, but unlike the others, this union endured. Together, they became Hollywood's King of the Cowboys and Queen of the West, presenting a picture of lasting love and success, even as private struggles remained close behind. After their marriage, Dale embraced not only Roy but also his 3 children from his marriage to Arlene, Cheryl, Linda Lou, and Roy Jr., Dusty. Roy welcomed Dale's son, Tommy, who was finally able to be acknowledged publicly as her child. Their blended family grew to include biological, adopted, and foster children, becoming central to their shared life. In 1950, Dale and Roy welcomed their only biological child together, Robin Elizabeth. Born with Down syndrome and serious medical complications, Robin arrived at a time when disabilities were rarely discussed openly. Despite societal pressure to hide her, Dale and Roy chose love and openness. Tragically, Robin passed away in 1952, just before her second birthday. The loss shattered Dale, shaking even her deeply rooted faith. Over time, however, she transformed her grief into purpose. In 1953, she published Angel Unaware, a deeply personal book that told Robin's story as a message from heaven. The book startled Hollywood but resonated powerfully with parents across the nation. Dale became an early advocate for compassion toward children with disabilities, giving voice to families who had long felt unseen. Letters poured in from readers sharing their own stories of pain and healing, and attitudes slowly began to change. In Oklahoma, a center for children with special needs was renamed in her honor, preserving Robin's legacy. This chapter of her life established Dale Evans as more than a performer. She became a symbol of resilience and empathy, using her pain to uplift others. Yet even as she stood strong in public, private sorrow continued to shape her journey. By the 1950s, Dale Evans and Roy Rogers reached the peak of their fame. Together, they starred in a series of successful Western films, including Don't Fence Me and Under California Stars. From 1951 to 1957, The Roy Rogers Show made them household names, with Roy riding his legendary horse Trigger and Dale appearing alongside him on her buckskin mare, Buttermilk. Week after week, they captivated audiences across America, bringing families together with stories of mystery, moral lessons, and uplifting messages of hope and faith. Their popularity on television was matched by success in music. Songs such as Happy Trails became enduring favorites, perfectly reflecting their wholesome on-screen personas as a couple who always triumphed over hardship. Dale's heartfelt songwriting and gentle voice added warmth to their sound, while Roy's unmistakable cowboy charm solidified their image as the beloved sweethearts of the Western world. Behind the scenes, their family life was just as full. Alongside Roy's children from a previous marriage and Dale's son, Tommy, they welcomed 4 adopted children into their home: Mimi, a foster child from Scotland, Dodie, a Native American girl, Sandy, and Debbie. Their home was lively and diverse, shaped by children of different backgrounds brought together by shared values of love, discipline, and faith. That sense of stability was shattered in 1964 when tragedy struck once more. Debbie, their 12-year-old adopted daughter, lost her life in a devastating church bus accident. The shock was sudden and overwhelming. Dale later described this period as one of the darkest chapters of her life, haunted by guilt and painful what-ifs. For both Roy and Dale, the loss reopened the deep wounds left by the earlier death of their son Robin, casting a heavy shadow over the entire family. In an effort to escape the constant reminders of grief, the couple chose to leave their large Chatsworth ranch and relocate to the Double R Bar Ranch in Apple Valley, California. While the new surroundings offered a fresh start, the pain of losing Debbie never truly faded for Dale. From that point on, her public voice changed. Her speeches, interviews, and writing became more raw and sincere, addressing suffering and faith with greater honesty. The once perpetually cheerful cowgirl image gave way to a woman willing to speak openly about loss, spiritual struggle, activism, and the strains within her marriage. By the 1960s, Roy Rogers and Dale Evans had become more than entertainers; they were prominent public advocates for their beliefs. Dale, especially, emerged as a strong Christian voice. In 1964, she spoke before thousands at a Los Angeles rally, calling for the reinstatement of mandatory prayer in schools and urging the nation to return to spiritual guidance. She openly supported conservative causes, including campaigning for presidential candidate Barry Goldwater. Her faith became inseparable from her career, shaping her music, public appearances, and speeches, and earning her admiration as a moral leader. Despite their public image, life behind closed doors was far more complex. In later years, Dale spoke openly about the difficulties in her marriage. While fans viewed Roy as gentle and kind, at home he was a firm disciplinarian, particularly with the children. Dale often felt alone during his long absences for filming and touring, admitting that loneliness and emotional strain followed her despite fame and applause. One of her deepest regrets stemmed from a deception imposed early in her career. For years, studio executives required her to present her son Tommy as her younger brother to protect her wholesome image. Even after revealing the truth following her marriage to Roy, Dale confessed that hiding her motherhood left lasting emotional scars and damaged her sense of authenticity. Rather than allowing pain to define her, Dale chose to transform it into purpose. She authored more than a dozen books, many aimed at comforting grieving parents and encouraging perseverance through faith. She often said she hoped to be remembered not for glittering cowgirl costumes, but for her willingness to speak honestly about suffering. By sharing her own brokenness, she believed she could help others heal. Throughout it all, Dale continued to honor Roy publicly. She acknowledged the hardships in their relationship while also emphasizing the deep love and respect that sustained their marriage for more than 50 years. It was a union shaped by devotion, tested by tragedy, and grounded in shared commitment despite its imperfections. As time moved into the 1970s and 1980s, television evolved, but Roy and Dale remained cherished icons. They frequently appeared on nostalgic programs, introducing classic films and reminiscing about Hollywood's golden era. In the 1990s, Dale even hosted her own religious television show, continuing to weave faith into her public life. As their legacy endured, their personal lives became increasingly marked by illness and loss. Roy's health declined throughout the 1990s, and Dale remained devotedly at his side until his death on July 6, 1998. His passing ended a partnership that had defined more than half a century. For Dale, the loss was deeply personal as well as public. She was no longer part of the legendary duo, but a widow facing life alone. In her final years, Dale's health weakened, and emotional burdens grew heavier. Without Roy, she became even more reflective and open. She spoke candidly about the loneliness she experienced during his long absences, the challenges of his strict parenting, and her enduring regret over hiding the truth about Tommy. These revelations surprised many who believed their marriage was flawless, but Dale insisted on honesty. As her daughter Dodie later said, she believed that sharing both light and darkness is what makes a person whole. Dale Evans passed away on February 7, 2001, at the age of 88, just 3 years after Roy. Her children described her final days as peaceful, marked by her readiness to reunite with her husband and the children she had lost. Her death closed the chapter on one of Hollywood's most enduring partnerships, leaving behind a legacy far more layered than the image seen on screen. It was a story not only of fame and faith, but of grief, resilience, and hard-earned truth. Though remembered as the king and queen of the West, Roy Rogers and Dale Evans carried wounds that never fully healed. Dale's final confessions revealed that even legends bear hidden burdens. What do you think? Should stars like Dale have shared these truths earlier, or was waiting until the end the right choice? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about the legends you thought you knew.